Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is the fourth and last part of literary device. So let's get started. A literary device is a specific aspect of literature or a particular work which we can recognize, identify, interpret or analyze. Unlike literary elements, literary techniques are not necessarily present in every text. The first one is acronym. Acronym is also a process of word formation. It is a type of abbreviation method used in word formation. An acronym is a pronounceable word formed from the first letter of each word in a phrase or title. The newly combined letters created a new word that becomes a part of every language. Acronyms are words which are formed for the first letter of other words and which are pronounced as full words. Like आप एग्जाम्पल में देख सकते हो एक्रोनियम आखिर हम कहते हैं किसको है. यहाँ पे नासा है NASA जिसका फुल फॉर्म है नेशनल एरोनॉटिक्स एंड स्पेस एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. तो ये जो बड़े बड़े टर्म्स होते हैं इनका जो हर एक वर्ड का जो हम फर्स्ट लेटर यूज़ करते हैं और उससे जो वर्ड क्रिएट होता है उसको हम एक्रोनियम के नाम से जानते हैं. जैसे यहाँ पे यूरोपियन यूनियन है जिसे हम EU के नाम से जानते हैं. इसी तरह के बहुत सारे वर्ड्स होते हैं जिनके हम शॉर्ट फॉर्म को यूज़ करते हैं. जैसे आप हिस्ट्री में देख सकते हो. हिस्ट्री में हम लोग HISTORY हिस्ट्री की जो स्पेलिंग होती है जनरली हम उसको शॉर्ट फॉर्म में HIS करके यूज़ करते हैं. तो एक्रोनियम बेसिकली इन्हीं चीज़ों को कहा गया है. The next one is epic. Epic is a long poem describing the actions of heroic or legendary figures or the history of a nation or a long film of book portraying heroic actions. Epic आप जनरली समझ सकते हो. कभी कहीं पे आपने बहुत अच्छी चीज़ें सुनी होंगी, महाकाव्य या भव्य किस्म की चीज़ें होंगी, उनको हम लोग एपिक टर्म्स में यूज़ करते हैं. जैसे कोई बहुत अच्छा मोमेंट क्रिएट होता है तो आप उसको एपिक मोमेंट के नाम से जानते हो. इट इज़ अ लॉन्ग नैरेटिव पोएम ट्रीटिंग ऑफ अ ग्राउंड heroic actions in an elevated and lofty style. In literary uses, the term encompasses both oral epic and written compositions. The prime examples of the oral epic are Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. Example of written epic include Virgil's Aeneid. An epic may deal with such various subjects as myths, heroic legends, or philosophical or moral theories. Epic poetry has been and continues to be used by people all over the world to transmit their tradition from one generation to another without the aid of writing. Famous examples of epic poetry include the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh, the ancient Indian Mahabharata and Ramayana. The next one is free verse. Free verse is an open form of poetry which in its modern form arose through the French words libriforme. It does not use consistent meter patterns, rhyme or any musical pattern. Free verse is free only in a relative sense. Its rhythm are based on patterned elements such as sound, words, phrases. Although the term is loosely applied to the poetry of Walt Whitman and every earlier experiments with irregular meters, it was originally a literal translation of vers libre. The name of a movement that originated in France in the 1880s. Free verse became current in English poetics, in the early 20th century. The first English language poets to be influenced by vers libre, notably F.S. Flint, Richard Aldington, Ezra Pound, and T.S. Eliot, were students of French poetry. Some features of free verses are: free verse poems have no regular meter and rhythm. Free verse poems do not have any set rule. Patterns of stress and unstressed syllables. The poet can give his own shape to a poem however he or she desires. सो आप फ्री वर्स से ये इतना तो समझ सकते हो कि फ्री वर्स जो लिखने का पैटर्न होता है उसमें कोई पर्टिकुलर रिदम नहीं होता है, उसमें कोई पर्टिकुलर मीटर नहीं फॉलो करते हैं. फ्री वर्स पोएट्स और राइटर्स अपने अकॉर्डिंग, अपने थॉट्स के अकॉर्डिंग लिखते हैं. So come to the next one is fable. It is a from the Latin word fabula. It means discourse. A fable is a short story intent to teach some moral. Fable is a literary genre, a sentient fictional story in prose or verse that feature animals, legendary creatures, plant, etc. A fable is a poetic story composed in verse or prose with a moral summed up at the end. A fable is short story that teaches a lesson or conveys a moral. Fables are fiction. Generally, fables are characterized by their moral lessons. These short tales were once passed down as folklore to teach listeners the difference between right and wrong. A fable includes a simple conflict and a resolution followed by a maxim. It gives advice on proper behavior and manners and offer maxims to live by. So fable से आप समझ सकते हो बेसिकली इसमें हमें अच्छे लेसन्स और मोरल्स के बारे में सिखाया जा रहा है, गुड एंड बैड के डिफरेंसेस के बारे में बताया जा रहा है. So come to the next, the climax. Climax, the words comes from Greek word climax, mean a ladder. This figure consists in a gradual ascent from the less impressive to more impressive in the arrangements of a series of words or ideas. It is the most important and exciting part of a book, play, piece of music, event, etc. In the structure of a play, the climax or crisis in the deceives moment or turning point at which the rising action of the play is reversed to falling action. So, the climax of a poem, such like the climax in a story or song, is the point at which the tension breaks. So basically students आप movies में भी देखते हो, किसी poems में भी देखते हो या novel में जो स्टोरी चली आ रही है, बहुत सारे सस्पेंस, बहुत सारे टेंशन बने रहते हैं, बट द टाइम जब सारे सस्पेंस, सारे टेंशन्स क्लियर आउट होते हैं, ब्रेक आउट होते हैं, तो बेसिकली उसी पॉइंट को हम क्लाइमेक्स कहते हैं. इन सॉनेट्स फॉर एग्जाम्पल विच ऑलवेज फॉलो अ फॉर्म ऑफ 2 stanzas of 8 and 6 lines respectively, the climax almost comes in the second stanza. It is also the highest point of emotional intensity and the moment when the action of the story turns towards the conclusion. Basically, a climax is a turning point which begins to solve the main conflict in a satisfying way, whereas an anticlimax is a turning point that is unsatisfying. So the next and the last one is hyperbole. Hyperbole basically a way of speaking or writing that makes something sound better, more exciting, dangerous, etc. Hyperbole can be used like any other descriptive form of language to help paint a more vivid picture and for your audience. Hyperbole also serves as a form of persuasion to really make your case to an audience. Hyperbole is a rhetorical and literary technique where an author or speaker intentionally uses exaggeration or overstatement for emphasis and effect. Such as example of hyperbole, that boy runs faster than a car. I must have walked 100 miles. So many more. So that's it for this video lecture. Thank you everyone. Keep watching.